be able to do. Okay, to start a call to order, and then we're on roll call. So, Nydia Bello, cause advocate. I don't see her here. Dr. Bond.
Here.
Oh, there you go. Cynthia Correa. Don't see Cynthia. Maybe she'll join us in a few minutes. I know she's dealing with an issue right now. Lakshmi Chari's here. Let's see. I don't see David Keys, our new principal of the high school. Brett Banducci. I don't see Brett. Gloria Rodriguez. Don't see her. I see Jeffrey Kiddas here. Donald Foster. I didn't see his name. There he is. Okay. Hey, Donald. Richard Castanero. Looking for Richard. Richard, no. And then Kurt Schmel.
Here.
Kurt? Oh, there you go. I was going to say, is Kurt here? I thought I saw his name. Okay. Emma Posadas.
I'm here.
All right. Thanks, Emma. Dr. Olivo. Lydia Olivo. Don't see Dr. Olivo. Fabiola Gomez from Cause. I'm not sure if I see her. Let's go down. Nope. Jerry Mead, I know, is here.
Here.
Thank you. Todd McWhorter sends his regrets that he wouldn't be able to make the meeting. John Marquez, I don't see John here. Let me look again. Got to go up and down here. Don't see John. Dr. Moore is going to be a little late. He had an appointment that he said he'll get on as soon as he can. Lorenzo Moraza.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are, Lorenzo. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
All right. Kevin Olson's here. Mark Robertson. Mark, are you here?
Present.
Thank you, Mark. Chris Inez is here. Dan Singer could not make it. He sent his regrets. Leslie Cornejo also sent her regrets. Dr. Sandoval's here, and I am here, Jeff Weinstein. So if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. If you have a flag in your office, where's my flag? Move it so that you guys can see my flag. Down there. Okay. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so as we discussed in our last meeting, the Strategic Planning Committee is going to be concentrating on programming, cost, benefits, and result. Anything that we can do. We spend a lot of money with a lot of different outside companies, a lot of different outside vendors, and so we wanted to review that with everybody's. And the first, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. He's going to go through all the third-party vendors that we spend $100,000 or more with every year. So Kevin, it's all yours.
All right, thanks. And I'm going to share screen 3. All right, everybody see that? Top vendors, 22-23. This is going to be riveting. So I've compiled a quick list of our top vendors. As Mr. Weinstein said, I used the threshold of $100,000 so that we weren't going through thousands of vendors. I've separated them out into 3 general categories. So let's see if we can There we go. So the first is the longest list here, comprehensive. So this is just our general vendor list. You can see it's sorted from the vendor we spent the most money with last year to the right at that threshold of about $100,000. You can see I added the notes, kind of the generally what service they provided, and I added a funding source. Let's see, laser pointer. There you go. Over here. So, and from the top, VCOE provides special ed services for us. This is everything from Triton Academy, which is an autism academy that we send some students to over in Camarillo, to it includes transportation of some of the students, to paraprofessional contracts, and what they call SELPA excess costs. So just as a special ed pool, the district, they get certain funding, and excess cost is divvied up on a per student kind of basis that we have enrolled there. So you can see that costs about $2.8 million of special ed services through VCOE. I've also noted on the funding source for many of the special ed services, I put special ed / general fund. So special ed does get some of their own specific restricted funding through a few different programs. Once they go over that funding, the general ed covers the rest. So for some of these, I just put special ed / general fund. There is one particular service down here, the ASPRNet, which is a special ed services that we received specialized funding from the state, and so that is specifically special ed funds noted on that one. But to go down the list, last year we had a book adoption with McGraw-Hill that was $630,000. We used restricted lottery funds for that. So if you ever wonder, where that lottery money is going from the state as you're buying some scratchers or playing that lottery, we do receive 2 pots of money of funding from the lottery. One is restricted that we pretty much use for curriculum and books, and one they call unrestricted, although we charge pretty much certificated salaries to the unrestricted pot of lottery. It does total about a little over $1 million annually. Star Inc., which is after school and intercession services last year, they also covered. We are required through the ELOP program to provide educational opportunities during our spring break program now as a condition of that funding. And so Star Inc. helped us with that intercession last year, since it was the first year we were required to do that. And then they work with Dr. Ramirez for the after school program. Meteor Education, we purchased some new classroom furniture last year, and those we use ESSER funds for that. Fillmore Area Transit is the main transportation company that we use for special ed transportation, and also field trips and other transportation as needed. I noted general fund because we do get a general fund allocation now starting this year for the first time for home to school transportation, and so about 60% of this cost gets covered by the state. So they actually take how much we spend on home to school transportation in the prior year, and they fund 60% of that specifically for transportation. I left Amazon on here. That's right, we spent over $350,000 with Amazon last year on various materials and supplies. I put funding source various because I wasn't going to dig into every single. Most of those Amazon orders are $100, $200. There's a few that are in the low thousands, but it's generally materials and supplies across the district. Mostly your site budgets are ordering stuff from Amazon sites. Again, I mentioned ASPRNet, which is a specialized service of special ed. We have our core reading and CGI math professional developments that we've been doing. So these are costs of that, and these are the trainers that have been coming on a weekly basis and working with our teachers, and those were paid for from out of educator effectiveness money last year. 360 degrees, so you're going to see a number of vendors now that we've listed, positional contractors, and I didn't they are used to cover nurses, SLPs, psychologists, OT, and potentially others. So I just kind of used the same grouping for all of those. 360 degrees last year was over $250,000. Office Depot, again, materials and supplies. SPSG is a federal grants company. They do grant writing and oversight. So we have a number of federal grants, including last year we received a $4.3 million mental health grant. They helped us write that grant, and they help oversee and help us file quarterly reports for that funding. STS Education, I missed one of the, this should have been over on the next slide with technology, but this is some Chromebooks purchased at an LCAP and general fund. So that's STS. Here's our purchase of the CTE vans, $208,000 as CTE money. Weekly studies is curriculum. Again, we use restricted lottery. Bridging Voices are interpreters that we use across the district. Many of these, I believe, are used for IEP meetings. Landscape Valley is a landscaping company we contract with our maintenance and operations team to do more specialized landscaping along with tree trimming around the district. Teacher created materials is a place where teachers use to buy various curriculum and stuff that they use in the classroom. Again, that's various site budgets mostly. Smart Shuttle was the main vendor for athletic transportation last year. If anybody has any questions, I would just let's see. I don't have, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see everybody. Let's see if I can adjust that. So could raise hands, or when I get through the last couple, we can jump back if there's any specific questions. So we have a couple of more special ed vendors, Addison Behavioral Resources, Special Ed, Autism Academies and Non-Public School Placement. Maxim Healthcare is positional contractors, again, getting the nurses, SLPs, OTs that we struggle with hiring enough of. Oak Grove was a special ed placement. Ed Theories, positional contractors. Franklin Covey was a Leader in Me professional development that we ran last year at a couple of different school sites, and that was paid for mostly out of site funds. Pioneer Healthcare, again, positional contractors. And Sharp Electronics is our district-wide copy machines, coming in at $105,000 for all of the copies and prints across the district. I'll note also that the Sharp, we've been working on moving our actual individual printers over to a Sharp contract. So this contract could also cover a bunch of our personal printers that teachers have in the classroom and those things. So that is the general vendor list of $100,000 or more from last year. I'll preface before if there's questions, but I'll preface I have two more slides where I separated out general technology purchases and our utilities, just because it's always eye-popping to see how much we spend on our utilities. Are there any questions about this particular list or conversation?
Yeah, Kevin, I just have one clarification that if you can make for us. Special ed's costs impact to the general fund. What are we contributing from the general fund every year into the special ed fund? About, what's the cost above and beyond we actually get funded for?
Yeah, I believe that the last year's actuals were about somewhere between $4 and $6 million in the actuals last year. Yeah, I don't have it right in front of me, but I know this year the budget is higher, but it's something, if you remember our actuals, I think we had budgeted something like 6, but we actually came in at $1.2 million under budget on the actuals for last year. So it was maybe in the range of like 4.8 as far as actual contribution from general fund. So, you can see if we were to categorize this, obviously positional contractors end up costing the school district a lot. So do employees. We could consider doing some further studies as far as what it would look like if we were to have direct hires in these positions. I would also say that should obviously come with a study of the hurdles of the direct hires and maybe why it's hard for us to do direct hiring for some of these positions.
I mean, I think that's a good idea, right? I mean, because there's only, even if the cost is the same, I would assume that the hours that we have available to us would increase, right? Because the hourly, rate would be cheaper, right? I mean, are we hiring these people full time? Or is it just part-time, or is an ad needed, or
I think
I'm sure that
I think
depends
it's a
on which
mix.
one.
Yeah, I think it's a
Some are
mixed bag.
full and some are part-time. I don't know about the nurses or some of the other ones on here who are not special ed, but it could be both. Most are full-time though.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that's go ahead, Kevin.
I should say
Sorry.
it would be a good study, I think, to look at that. But like I said, it comes with hurdles because and Dr. Bond could chime in if he wants to, but I think that one of the main struggles is that our compensation package might be a little low compared to, many of these positions can get jobs outside of school districts, and therefore our general compensation package just isn't attractive enough to get a direct hire. That might not always be the case, but in general.
Yeah, Kevin, I can tell you for sure that with nurses, that's absolutely the case. SLPs also have options outside of education, so that's another place but we did add a direct hire in each of those areas this year that we didn't have last year, so.
So we're making improvements, but we could look into that. Beyond that, I don't know if there's any programs that stand out to people that we should dig into within this list of expensive vendors.
Right. Am I correct to assume that the $208,000 for vans, that's a one-timer? I don't necessarily think we're buying vans every year, although with our transportation budget spending, how about the classroom furniture? Oh, geez.
Yeah, we do have a lot of one-time purchases on here. You're right. So
That's skewing us a little. Sorry.
oh, you got muted.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's true, right? And I would assume that this is going to look a bit different, right? So, I mean, certainly I think we need to look at SPED, but we also have a SPED committee that hopefully is going to be looking at how we're staffing as part of what we talk about. Because that's pretty much the vast majority of what's on here. And then just looking at the numbers, if we spent 11 million last year in SPED, is that what we did?
Close to it, a little
Yeah.
under 11, yes.
We have about 3.5 million here in contracting, so that's a huge burden on contracting, right, from SPED. So I mean, it's certainly will be interesting to kind of dig into that a little bit more. Also, I'm looking at the PD, right? And so, how much of that PD was funded by one-time money? And, that's another question I would have is how much of that is going to be ongoing, since we should be investing in PD, but will it be at this kind of level?
Yeah, so we did use educator effectiveness over here, which was one-time money. But I think that long-term, and I don't know if David's available to talk about it or not, but our long-term PD plan and an ongoing funding source should definitely, something the cabinet's talked about a certain amount, and for this year we did identify some ongoing funding sources for PD, but I'm sure that David would have the details.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of the initial, especially like with the K2 literacy and the CGI math, the K2 literacy that will decrease quite a bit because we'll probably just continue the coaching. The CGI math, we're going to start training. We're going to start doing PD for the K2 teachers, but so I would say probably more than half. It'll decrease probably more than half of what we've been spending over the last 2 years because most of our teachers have already been trained.
Sounds good. Thanks, David.
Kevin, just to clarify really quick, the VCOE one, that includes, you said, our VCOE program placement, like, so our excess cost. Transportation's in there too?
Yeah.
For
The
professional
the excess
staff, like our BCBAs that we contract from them.
Yeah.
Also, is our URSIS contract through VCBH, did you include it in that line, or because I didn't see it on here?
No. I don't believe it's in that.
Oh, okay.
This is a compilation. I've compiled literally who we spent, we check direct. So, if
Kevin, there's a
CPA
question in the chat room from Emma. It says 3rd through 5th got new desks, which we know about, but will they be getting new furniture? So I believe that would be chairs and other pieces of furniture for the classrooms.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're hoping to continue with the furniture refresh across the district. I think we need to work this year on identifying another funding source and a budget. Again,
That seems like that's
just for this year.
Yeah, that seems like that's pretty ripe for some of that one-time money, you know, that we're spending down. So, you know, things like that I have a little bit less problems with. Like if we can get it through those one times and it's capital expenses like that, that makes sense to have that, you know, as high as it is. You know, other things like, you know, those positional contractors, I mean, I get it, right? I mean, get that it's hard to hire people, you know, we should look at it to see, you know, what that would be like if we can, you know, change out of that. You know, one other one that I had a question on was the federal grant writing and oversight. Can you explain that one a little bit more?
Yeah, so we have 2 stop grants. I don't think Dr. Bradley's here, but we have 2 stop grants, stop threat assessment, and another stop grant that that's managed through student services. We have a COPS grant that's been helping to install new cameras and gates and doors. We're almost done with that one. We did write another grant to hopefully get another $700,000 of what's called COPS money in the current year. We also received that the federal mental health grant that's was $4.3 million over 5 years. That's paying for new mental health counselors and building a pipeline of mental health counselors for us. Those are all fairly complicated federal grants. Not just the application process, but the quarterly update, narrative, and gathering of expenditures and applying to the application of the budget. And so this has been a relationship that we had before all of us started. I'll say it was a vendor that was here and has been effective at getting us the grants. It is a pretty healthy chunk of change as far as funding, as far as cost goes. I've had some conversations with them about that, but it also is hard to look a gift horse in the mouth when they hand you, when you have a couple of meetings and then you get a $4.3 million grant, it's they kind of justify their fees. Could we bring grant writing in house? I think that could be a conversation, and yeah, maybe we even get a little bit more bang for our buck. In that we could, I know again, if Miss Bradley was here, Dr. Bradley, she would probably say if we had a little bit of help with that oversight, more boots on the ground, it would help her greatly. But grant writing is one of those things, like you pay for what you get, and it would be a hard position for us to pay within our organizational pay structure enough to get probably an effective grant writer. So,
Oh, is that something that potentially, okay, maybe not countywide, but is that something that a small consortium of districts comes together and creates an in-house shared person or persons? Have us, Fillmore and CME, share somebody to do that in-house. That gives you more control over that person, but at the same point, potentially cuts that bill in half, or cuts that bill in half and then cuts it into 4 pieces for 3 or 4 districts to work with. Is that something that could potentially be viable down the line?
if you work hard enough at anything, you could figure it out. But again, I think it would again require a unique relationship where probably an independent agency works with local groups and bills us still, because as an independent contractor to work with 3 different school districts on grant writing. I mean, I know that all the districts probably love to have an effective writer. We're lucky enough to have an effective writer, even if they're fairly expensive. So it's something we can look into. I see a couple of hands up.
Emma's had hers up for a while.
Yes.
I just wanted to be clear in regards to my questions for 3rd through 5th furniture. So if I'm understanding correctly, right now it looks like we're waiting to see where funding is going to come from in order for them to get the remainder of their furniture. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I think we need to identify a budget at the moment. There is one-time money that could be accessed, but I think we probably need to do maybe a board presentation on what a budget might look like that would be effective. And last year we put together a committee of different teachers that helped us test and choose furniture, and I think we need to consider if that process was effective or not. Maybe follow up with some of the teachers and staff to see if we can run a more effective process to identify the furniture needs and how to purchase them. But I think there's a will definitely to continue the rollout of new furniture in the classrooms across the districts. Definitely at this point now, as you mentioned, 3rd through 5th need everything else other than student desks. And then beyond that, we need to continue to look through classrooms to refresh old furniture.
Okay, and then my next question is, what do we know why those grades only received the desks and not, the rest of the furniture way back when they received it a couple years back?
Yeah, back 3rd through 5th grade received desks because coming out of COVID, it was designated that all the rooms needed to be set, and we needed individual desks so that students could be set apart from each other and given proper spacing. And so it was kind of a very quick collaboration and identification of a need, and the purchase of, I can't tell you how many desks, 1,000 desks or something, and deployed. So Yeah, it wasn't an all-inclusive process, which is why we tried to do that a little bit more last year.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I wasn't, I mean, like I said, I just wasn't sure why they received desk and chairs only versus everything else, like the other grades are now receiving. So, okay, thank you.
Hey, Kevin, so I've got a question. First of all, I just want to acknowledge everyone in the room here. I mean, it's great to see a comprehensive discussion going on. Thank you all for taking your busy time to be here. But Kevin, my first question is, sir, is STS education. What is that? I see that it's 222,000 in Chromebooks. So STS, what does that stand for?
Ooh.
Or is
That's
that one-time monies, or because I
That's their
said that
business
it's
name.
going.
STS Education is the vendor. That's the business name. I couldn't tell you why they chose STS. I can't.
No worries, no worries. So I'm just wondering, is that a one-time grant or is that something that's ongoing?
Well, it
'Cause
is.
it's-
It's you know, a little column A, little column B as far as one time versus ongoing. I mean, there are purchases that are one time, but
Right.
in order to continue our one-to-one program, you know, we've budgeted in the past. When we first penciled it out, we figured we needed to purchase about 500 new
Right.
Chromebooks every single year, for both incoming students and to refresh at different levels.
Correct.
I think now we're looking at maybe as much as 800 a year. We need to purchase again in order to just keep that refresh cycle going effectively.
Right.
So that itself was just a one-time purchase of Chromebooks, but it is something that we need to keep going in an ongoing basis.
Perfect. Is it safe to say that school sites are having a little bit more discussions and are having the opportunity to make those decisions to purchase Chromebooks, or is that a decision at the district level? Is that more school-based or is that more district level?
It is more district level. So last year, Joaquin, our tech director, and Dr. Moore, and you know, union representatives sat down and really looked through our whole program. You know, the one-to-one program really here came out of a knee-jerk reaction to COVID, right? Hell, we need to get Chromebooks in all these kids' hands at home so we can do distance learning. And they were just tossed at everybody.
Okay.
And so Joaquin was new to us at the beginning of last year, and he really started to dig in and started asking questions. Inherited, you know, a little bit of a mess, and not gonna lie. And so, but he's come in with, you know, how are we going to standardize our technology across the district? What programs are we using across the district? What access is appropriate for the different grade levels? iPads or Chromebooks? Is it take home one-to-one? Does it stay in the classroom? So again, they really dug in and had a lot of those conversations, and they did try to standardize across the district. It doesn't mean that there's not flexibility, but it gives us at least a standard to start on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, again, it's just one of those, you know, I just want to make sure that school sites, you know, are having those discussions and their school site councils are spending their money appropriately, and we're supporting them in that direction. The second question I have is regarding the Bridging Voices. I noticed that that's a big chunk of money, $190,000. Is there a reason why that can't be an in-house position? And I'll leave it at that. I know that's going to go into further discussion, but I just want to kind of just drop it for now. So.
Yeah, I think that's where it's a good discussion. It's going to take a few different layers of work to bring that more effectively in-house. So I have 2 more quick pages. They'll probably be much faster here. Let's see if we can go on. I do have our actual technology purchases for last year. Ooh, it's a little blurry since it's bigger. So along with that STS purchase of Chromebooks, you'll see we had 4 other major expenditures related to technology. We did spend about almost $1.5 million last year with NIC partners. That was over the course of many different POs and projects. That included the bulk of it, almost about $1 million, was network upgrades. We replaced almost all of our servers and switches, and our whole Wi-Fi system across the district. Again, going to our one-to-one program, it was really important that we do that because this gives us much more visibility as far as who is actually on our network. So we can physically locate Chromebooks. If a kid's reporting that it's lost, we can actually go in and see when it was last on the network, and when our cameras report or show us that somebody's on our campus when they shouldn't be, we can actually check our network to see if their phone has pinged our Wi-Fi, and potentially find out who they are. So again, we've finally moved our network into the 21st century, and that was really important for many of the programs that we have happening. They did supply us with some Chromebooks through one of the purchases. We've spent a good amount in the last year or two on security cameras around the district. We essentially had a non-existent system, non-operational, I should say, around the district. So we've been replacing cameras at every single school site, which with a much more highly effective system. I think that any principal that's here could chime in that it's really been great adding some security cameras. We've been focused on the perimeters of all of our campuses to start. Again, an effective system, but about $2,000 a camera once you acquire it, get the licensing, and get it installed. And then they're our vendor for Single Wire, which is our new PA system that we're rolling out district-wide. Last year, we were able to install it at Bedell and McKevitt. That include all new IP speakers and emergency management and two-way communication, and just definitely, again, getting up to the 21st century. The bulk of that, about $800,000, was paid through E-rate funding. So it was reimbursed through our federal E-rate funds. We also use SHI International to purchase technology, hardware, and software. With T-Mobile last year, the hotspots that we provide to students cost us over $100,000. Again, a program we're working on cleaning up this year. We've been paring those down. We can ping them to see if they've been used in the last number of months and switch those off. And you might have seen some district-wide communications to parents about federal programs, federal assistance programs for connectivity. So we're hoping to wind the hotspot program down to hopefully zero. And then, of course, Apple Inc. I don't think you can be an educational institution and not give Apple some money somehow. So obviously, we buy iPads and some other computers, and they sell software and stuff for those devices. So this is the list of last year's tech purchases, over 100,000. Any questions about this list? All right. Hearing none, I'll go to my final slide, which I know is going to be the most riveting for everybody, which are the utilities. Our power bill from Southern California Edison was over close to $740,000 last year. Our water bill was close to $700,000 from the city of Santa Paula. Athens, our trash, was $181,000, and the gas company cost us $155,000 last year. So I'm sure that Daniel would love to see a year-over-year comparison of how we're doing and rates and usage, which we'll make for everybody at some point. We do.
Yeah, because you did some upgrading, right? I mean, we've gone to some the LEDs.
Yeah.
I mean, this is definitely something that I think what you've been doing with Schneider has been, really, hopefully, really effective. We should probably monetize that to see how effective it's been. Certainly water is a big one. I know that you said you were changing meter size.
Well, with our Green Schoolyards grant, we'll hopefully be able to change the meter size at those 3 school sites and reduce the water usage. Yeah, so I think
Right.
there's opportunity within the water bill to save,
Because those are the two big ones, right? I mean,
the hard part is in the end, both of them, as far as dollars go, we reduce our usage, but the cost still goes up because we can't keep up with the increase
right, with
in the price.
right. Well, and the other thing that I don't know if you've looked at, we're gonna be heading to the Clean Power Alliance.
Mhm.
And I don't know, like, I know that you can call them and talk about, okay, well, this is our usage, what's the right plan to go on to, how does that compare with Edison? I think we talked about that before. I don't remember if you went through that exercise. But it is something that, is going to be coming, right? And so we'll at least have a choice of providers. Maybe we can get some benefits from that.
Yeah. So that is it. Those are all of the vendors who got more than $100,000 from us. Again, in the kind of general sense, and then technology and utilities both spending a fair amount of money.
Kevin, just one more question on the CE. So we're installing air conditioners continually. So and we're replacing old air conditioners, I assume. So is that kind of a wash, or we're going to see our electric power usage go up because of all the air conditioning?
Yeah, so many of the spaces that are getting air conditioning didn't have air conditioning before, so that would be an increase in the cost. I think, what we're hoping to do is through those other efficiencies, such as the LED lighting, through tighter energy management, which we have some potential guidelines and discussion for the board, and maybe even a group like this to consider some energy management guidelines across the district, that even though we're adding air conditioning to classrooms across the district, hopefully we can keep our usage down and the cost down.
I think actually this would be a pretty good place to at least, do a quick vetting, especially since we have, different, staff levels, and it's not just the board who doesn't really live this stuff day to day. And so, maybe like, kind of, brainstorm a little bit on what we can do, at least vet the ideas, right? Because I'm sure there's things that we don't think about when we say, hey, air conditioning only at 78 degrees, right? Or, those types of guidelines that we might put in place.
Yeah, I have a pretty good policy that we could discuss. We could bring to this committee next time if you're interested. Okay, drafted.
Any more questions for Kevin before we move on to our next agenda item? So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Ramirez to go over the Star Nova program. As you saw in Kevin's original list, the Star Nova program was costing us about $650,000 last year, and this year we're hitting about $800,000. So Gina, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to explain what the program is and what we get out of it.
Well, good afternoon. I'm gonna try to share. I'm not sure what I'm sharing right now, but I'm gonna share my screen. Can you see are you able to see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. So I'm gonna try to go quickly because I see that we only have like 14 minutes. So I'm gonna try, if I go over something, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that I give you some time to be able to ask questions. So just wanted to give you a background of what we need to have for Aspire. We have to have these 3 components, which one of them is the enrichment activities, just so that you have that. A little bit of a history. As you know, before COVID, we used to partner with the Boys and Girls Club, and they were scheduled to provide enrichment because they were not, and they were unable to hire program staff to do so. We unfortunately ended our contract with them. Additionally, we have our IAs who are program staff who in their job description, they are not to plan any activities, they are only to deliver the activity. So whether it's for homework, enrichment, anything like that, that's what they are scheduled to do for as per their job description. So here's our comparison as to what we have today. Before, we used to have homework with 20 students and enrichment with 20 students because we had a 20-to-1 ratio. We still have a 20-to-1 ratio in Aspire. However, because we now partner with StarNova, we get to have 10 students for homework and 14 students for enrichment, and then they flop. So I just want to make everyone aware that before StarNova was part of the after-school program, it was still offered to all the other students who were not part of Aspire. So just to let you know about that piece, and I'll give you a little bit more information further as the slides go by. So here's what homework time looks like for us. So now we're able to divide those 10 students into 2 small groups, and the IA is able to focus on homework, be able to do high frequency words for practice for reading, and be able to actually listen to students read and allow them to read, to give them that support. While the other students are working on Joy School, which is a computer program that we bought that works on language development for K2. And for 3-5, we have the Alexander's Amazing Adventures, which builds on their character. So it helps them be able to reinforce their social and emotional development through stories and music. Additionally, so here is what currently we are offering. So you can see there's a lot of variety. So we have 13 different offerings for the year, right? And then this is what's being offered currently. And then there's going to be some switching around so that throughout the whole year, students get a variety of enrichment opportunities. So this is our 13 offerings currently. And now, what are the outcomes from those? So in the music class, the students are learning about music. They get to learn about instruments. They learn about rhythm and clapping. And then they even get to build their own instruments. In dance, they get to learn about, again, dance and choreography, and then being able to do the dances together. In fashion, they're learning about clothing, and then they know how to sew, right? And then in our robotics, as you can see here, they're actually learning how to build and how does inertia work. And when you tilt it this way, and when you put it up, so they're learning lots of rigorous language as well, and science and things about how to make their little motorcycles or their cars go faster, right? How many loops they have to put in there. And in Minecraft, I've only chosen a few of them. In Minecraft, they're learning on their computer how to build and how to create worlds and how to make, and when they don't build it correctly, why it collapses. And then they have that time to be able to discuss why it collapses and what they can do different for the next time they get to do that activity. They're always 8 weeks only, so they rotate every 8 weeks on the different activities, so the kids really get deep into what they're learning, but also get some more exposure to other enrichment opportunities. So here are the outcomes. So we talked about how do we know what's working, what's not working. So we do give a survey to our parents, and for the sake of time, you can see here, I only extracted some of the questions from the survey and showed you that our parents do feel that their children are doing better because they're coming to the after school program, and that they're satisfied with the activities that they're being provided, and that their child likes to be at school. And I know this doesn't seem like a big, for our conduct violations, we had only 126, which is really good. We don't have data to compare to because last year was our first year truly using StarNova. And so we are starting to collect the data from last year, right? And we only had to dismiss 6 students. And unfortunately, the majority of them come from the middle school, just for different behavior adjustments that they needed to do. So that's that piece. But anecdotally, I could tell you that our behavior tremendously improved last year. I would have to go out to the sites, to different sites every single day before to manage behavior. I didn't have to do that last year. So that was a big change for us. Additionally, so here are some of the reactions from the staff, right? We have our program leaders, and this is something that they say, right? And this one really stood out to me. It says, Star Nova is an awesome way for our students to see there is more to learning than a piece of paper. It is a hands-on activity and play that allows our students to develop their cognitive, emotional, social, and physical skills through various subjects. And this is coming from our program leaders, right? The other one that was really, that stood out to me just for the sake of time is that apart from being great for our kids, right? It is a huge help to our staff. By taking half of our group during a valuable time in Aspire homework, it allows our staff to work closer and more in depth with those kids doing homework with less interruptions. So this is just some of the highlights that our staff has about Star Nova. And so here I did like a little bit of a cost analysis. I went onto Google and searched out how much would it cost to do dance. I mean, I know as a parent, I had my child in dance and I know how much I paid, but I wanted to see what it was. So for a one dance class, it ranges from $40 to $160. We have 541 students in Aspire. And out of those 541 students, that would mean that if each of them would pay $40, it would come out to $21,000. Right? So as you can see, I only picked 5 different enrichment opportunities, but you can see that if our students were to go out and look for those opportunities, it would cost over $1 million. That's only 5. We're offering 13 different opportunities. So Star Nova now it increased because we added the middle school. And we also added the middle school, and then we asked Star Nova to start from the very beginning of the school year instead of starting later in the year. And we also asked them to be with us 180 days. Like we need Star Nova there every single day. So it increased the number of the cost. So the total cost for us is $787,000 currently. That's combining middle school and elementary. And so moving forward, one of the things we want to do, we're always, on this continuous cycle of improvement. So what do we need to do? So we look at that. We're going to continue to evaluate the effectiveness and impact of Star Nova. Our goal for next year is to look at our academies and then align the after school program, because that's what we have to do, is support what's happening during the day. So we want to align those enrichment opportunities with the academies as they're getting established and start happening. We're collecting homework data. We're making sure, we're looking at to see how many students are completing their homework, checking in with teachers, making sure that we have that communication. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. That's why we continuously improve, right? We make shifts. And we're looking at our attendance. Our attendance has been better than ever. It also, again, I'll give you an example. We were able to serve 100 students in Glen City. Now we're able to serve 178. So, and we're able to make it work with ELOP money. Thank goodness for ELOP money, and and parents want to come, right? And then we also have our academic data. Currently, we can't give you. I would not be able to give you an accurate demonstration of how what the impact is academically, because our data is still in the process of getting put together and what are we giving. So we want to make sure that once we can give you that comparison, we will, as soon as we have that information. And another thing that I wanted to share is that we also have now Star Nova for the students who are not in Aspire. So during LCAP, parents said, we want Star Nova for our kids too. We're like, sure, so we are able now to provide them to those who are not in Aspire, because the parents don't want them to stay that long and they only want the enrichment piece. They don't need the homework support. So now we're able to offer that as well to all our parents. I know I said it really quickly and I apologize, but I wanted to be able to give you some time, 4 minutes, to give you time to ask me questions and any comments about what we're doing with Star Nova.
Gina, I have a question.
Yes.
The students that are currently this fall semester enrolled in the NOVA program, the after-school program, will they remain the entire year if the parents request, or is there a kind of a ending time to allow for more opportunities for others? So how does that work for those that are not currently being served? Is it an open door, endless, or is there such thing as capacity? And then
That's
are
a
you-
good question. Good question, Lencho. So there, we do have a capacity of 14 students, but the good news, I think, is that every 8 weeks, we open up a new enrollment. And we keep a list of the students who are like on a waiting list per se. And then if there's enough, then I knock on Ken's door and say, hey, Ken, can we please open up another class because we have these kids waiting? So there's that flexibility to be able to make sure that we're servicing all students and that all students get a chance to participate in whichever activity they want to participate. Did that answer your question?
Well, I would think that for the enrichment side of it, I think it does. I'm
Okay.
thinking on the academic side of things, if you have students that are there primarily because they're needing support in their academics, what happened to those that are in need now but are not participating? So how does that open up?
Okay, so thank you I'm glad I asked you that. So the parents, so we have an open door policy. So if at any time that a parent needs help with homework, they can come in and drop in, and we have staff that will help them. They don't have to be there for a certain amount of time. They could be there for 20 minutes. They could be there for an hour. They can be there for an hour and a half. And it's like an open door policy. So they can come at any time and we will support them. And we are able to do that because we only have 10 kids. So then the staff can then be able to allow more kids to come in on a drop-in center per se. I guess maybe to explain it a little better. Did that help?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
One piece of data that is missing here is, I know that we have that 14 like kids that can go in, but anecdotally I've heard around that sometimes there's not close to 14. So do you guys take attendance so that we can see like what's the vacancy rate, right? I mean, how much program are we paying and how much are students taking advantage of that? And
If I
I'd
may-
kind of like to hear from other site admin, right, to see like what their experience has been on that.
So Daniel, if I may just ask a clarifying question, do you mean the 14 students being during Aspire
That's
time or
the-
during the other piece?
during with their enrichment
Mhm.
piece, right? So because the homework isn't delivered by Starnova, right?
Correct.
Right, it's just the enrichment piece that is.
Mhm.
And so like, I've talked to, a number of people and they're like, well, I looked in the enrichment class that was going on, I only saw 2 kids today. That's that's the data piece that I wanted to hear about is, how utilized is this?
Would you like the principals to answer first? Or anybody else? that
Only
would
if they
like to?
want.
Gina, I have just a
I-
clarifying question
yes.
for you. So,
Uh-huh.
in our Star Nova billing,
Uh-huh.
we gave them a capacity number
Mhm.
that we needed them to service. So
Correct.
can you provide the board and
Mhm.
strategic planning committee with numbers that show, hey, every day we pay for capacity of 500 students or whatever,
Mhm.
and how many of those students are showing up every day? And that'll give us an idea of the vacant seats that, on a daily basis,
So yes, I can definitely do that. So I can actually put that in the board update because we have, for the after school program, we have a consistent enrollment. Like I say, 170 something students. Like I'm just going to use Glen City because it's next door. So every day we have 14 students going to Star Nova. Now, and the other, like the one that we're offering that's added to that piece, like for instance, at Glen City, they have 15 enrolled, so they're not done yet with their series. So I can ask them to give me a daily attendance for that group of students to make sure that we are reaching that capacity. That's one of the reasons that we stopped doing it for the other kids who were not in Aspire, because we had a low enrollment and we weren't going to pay for just to have 5 kids in the class when we're supposed to have 14. But the parents asked, say, please, can you please bring it back? And, and for LCAP, we're like, okay, we had multiple stakeholder meetings and they all requested it to be brought back. That's why I was asking whether it was in Aspire or was it the ones that are not in Aspire?
That I don't know, right?
Okay.
So,
okay, so I will.
The other thing is when I see kind of the list of things that are offered, I know that there's a lot of organizations that offer that in town, right? And honestly, if I had a choice, I'd rather support local organizations than bringing in, talent like, the Mr. Maraza, right, represents some at times, right, De Colores. And we've talked about, having them, come in and, do say mariachi or things like that, right? And, this seems like a perfect opportunity to be able to, integrate, those kinds of activities into the students' school days, right? So, I don't know how other people feel about that, right? And also, the alignment to what we're offering in the academies really does need to start happening, right? Because it only just makes sense, right? I mean, we don't want to completely focus them on just, if they're at visual, at Blanchard, they're just doing visual arts all the time, every time, right? But there should definitely be some continuity in that, right? Because there's different experiences that they can get, right? Plus, the PBL, right? The projects that they may be doing, having those integrate into the after school period too, for those who, want to take advantage of that, I think would make a lot of sense too. I don't want us to get caught in doing something because, we need it to evolve with the rest of what we're doing. So.
Dr. Sandoval, may I make a comment? So, Dr. Ramirez and I, we talked a little bit today about exactly what you're saying, the focus of the academies and how we could enhance the focus of each academy. And there is so much, and we were doing some brainstorming, and there's really so much more that we could be doing as the academies develop. And I think there's a willingness to even look outside Star Nova to see what kinds of programming we could bring in. I know at one time McKevitt had a piano lab for piano. We had, I know that there's a strong desire to bring a mariachi program into our district, and those could all be local people that could assist. And so I'm hoping that once we do the partnership dinner and that kind of thing, that a lot of opportunities will open up that we could look in for the after school program. But there definitely is a willingness to do that.
Yeah, because $800,000 is a lot to send out of the community, right? And that's a fair chunk of change.
I think if I may add, we are working with Luzma, who is our, our poet laureate, and she is doing some enrichment activities with our students and bringing poetry in, and and we're trying to figure out a way to be able to bring more culture, especially since Glen City is a STEAM squared academy with a multicultural vision. Really looking at how we can possibly start a mariachi program just for Glen City in the morning, right, from 7 to 7:30, 7:45. So those are things that are in the works. And I think, like I when I talked to Dr. Moore today, I said, we this is what we have right now, and we evaluate every year to see what we can do to improve. We always want to, so I think of it as an investment, right? So I want to invest in our students and provide them with the best that we have available to us. Currently, this is what we have that is better than what we were doing in 2 years, 3 years ago, right? However, is there always a chance for us to do better? Absolutely. And our job is to always, like I said, continuously look and find ways to improve and to absolutely look at I think that's a great idea, looking at what we have locally and how can we partner with our local organizations to do art and to do music. So I appreciate those comments. Kurt?
Gina, towards the beginning, you laid out using our IAs as a little bit of a challenge because you're only allowed to do X, Y, and Z with them. They're not allowed to do A, B, and C. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I may well be, but isn't this essentially a second position for these IAs? They're in school doing their 5-hour contract. And I know I don't see Chris on here to chime in on this either. So this is a second job. Why aren't we writing the job description to fit what we need? Why aren't we writing their contract to fit what we need instead of, well, this is the contract we use for an IA, so we're just going to double it up and give them a second one to do the same thing. If you can utilize people better, utilize people better. We've got the power when we hire them.
So Kurt, thank you for making that comment. Well, I'll talk to our HR department, and I'll explore that question with them.
And obviously we can't do it now because this year because we already have contracts, and yeah, I'm not going to go against it. I'm a good union guy too, but moving forward, why don't we utilize our people the way we need them? And if they're not willing to do it, find someone else who is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kurt. I wrote those ideas down.
Any other questions for Dr. Ramirez on Star Nova? I don't see any hands up. Okay, so it is 5:09, and I want to make sure we get you out of here on time. We will be sending out an invite to the next meeting. It should be about the same time next month. We'll confer with Dr. Sandoval on his schedule and make sure that we can put together a date that works for a lot of people. And we will adjourn this meeting at 5:09 with the understanding that the review of one-time money spending and balances and expiration dates of those monies will be presented first in the next meeting. So thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate every comment and what you guys are bringing to the table. It helps us a lot make decisions. And we will hopefully have a great rest of the week and get into the weekend as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.